You shouldn't even be standing in the front row, Elena. My sister, Bianca, didn't whisper it. She hissed it, her voice cutting through the somber silence of the graveside service like a serrated knife. She adjusted her oversized sunglasses designer knockoffs that were too big for her face and linked her arm tighter with her husband, Chad. "Excuse me?" I asked, keeping my eyes fixed on the mahogany casket being lowered into the ground. "I said, you shouldn't be here," Bianca repeated, louder this time. "You haven't been here for 5 years. You didn't change his diapers. You didn't drive him to dialysis. You were off in the city, playing. Whatever it is you play. Secretary? Assistant," Chad snorted. "Glorified coffee runner, probably." Bianca leaned in, her perfume something floral and cloying that smelled like a funeral home assaulting my senses. "Let's be clear, Elena. When Mr. Henderson reads the will this afternoon, don't expect a dime. You don't deserve the inheritance. You don't deserve the house. You don't deserve the legacy." Dad knew who was loyal, and it wasn't the daughter who drives a 10-year-old Honda. She looked at my car parked on the gravel path. A modest, gray sedan. Then she looked at her own leased BMW X5, gleaming aggressively in the sun. "Money goes to people who know how to use it," she smirked. "Not people who shop at Goodwill." I smoothed the lapel of my black wool coat. I didn't look at her. I didn't cry. "We'll see, Bianca," I said softly. "Oh, we will see," she laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. "I'm going to enjoy watching you leave with nothing but your bus fare." She turned back to the grave, dabbing a dry eye with a tissue for the benefit of the other mourners. She thought she was burying our father. She didn't realize she was burying herself. And she certainly didn't know that the legacy she was fighting for was a corpse she couldn't afford to resuscitate. To understand why my sister felt entitled to erase my existence, you have to understand the dynamic of the Vance family. We deal in illusions. My father, Robert, was a man who believed that if you looked rich, you were rich. He bought boats he couldn't dock, houses he couldn't heat, and cars he couldn't insure. Bianca is his clone. She is 34. She has never held a job for longer than a year. She calls herself an influencer, which mostly means she posts photos of meals she makes Chad pay for. She is loud, she is flashy, she is drowning in debt. Then there is me, Elena, 32. To my family I am the black sheep, or perhaps the invisible sheep. I moved to New York 10 years ago. I stopped asking for money. I stopped coming home for holidays that turned into screaming matches about loans. When they ask what I do, I tell them I work in risk management. To Bianca, that means I sell insurance over the phone. To Chad, that means I'm a boring bureaucrat. "Oh, Elena," Bianca loves to say on our rare phone calls. "It must be so hard living in a shoebox apartment. Maybe you should move back? I could get you a job at the mall. They're hiring shift managers." I never correct her. I never tell her that risk management means I am the founder and managing partner of Aegis Capital, a distressed asset firm that buys failing companies and turns them around for massive profit. I never tell her that my shoebox is a brownstone in the West Village. I never tell her that the Goodwill coat I wore to the funeral is vintage Yves Saint Laurent and costs more than her wedding ring. Why do I hide it? Because 3 years ago, when Dad got sick, I tried to help. I offered to pay for a specialist. I offered to fly him to a clinic in Switzerland. Bianca blocked me. "We don't need your charity pennies," she screamed over the phone. "I'm taking care of him. I control his health care. You just want to swoop in and play hero." I realized then that Bianca didn't want Dad to get better. She wanted to be the martyr. She wanted the credit. And, I suspected, she wanted access to his accounts. So, I stepped back. I operated from the shadows. I hired a private investigator to monitor Dad's finances. I saw the drain. I saw Bianca using Dad's credit cards to buy designer bags. I saw Chad using Dad's equity line to fund his failed dropshipping business. I saw the foreclosure notices piling up, notices Bianca hid from Dad. I couldn't stop them from spending his money without revealing my own wealth, which would have only made them feed faster. So, I did the only thing I could. I bought the debt. Through a shell company, I purchased the mortgage on the family estate. I purchased the liens on the cars. I purchased the outstanding business loans. Technically, for the last 18 months, my father and by extension, Bianca has been living in my house. They just didn't know it. But today was the reading of the will. And Bianca was ready to claim her throne. She wanted the house. She wanted the status. She had no idea she was fighting for the captain's chair on the Titanic. The reading of the will was held at the family estate. It's a sprawling, Victorian monstrosity on a hill. From the outside, it looks grand. Close up, you can see the peeling paint, the overgrown ivy choking the brick, the rot in the window frames. It smells of mildew and old money that has long since evaporated. I walked into the library. Bianca had already set the stage. She sat in Dad's leather armchair, her legs crossed, holding a glass of sherry. Chad stood behind her, hand on her shoulder, looking like a bodyguard for a discount celebrity. Mr. Henderson, Dad's ancient lawyer, sat at the desk, looking uncomfortable. "You're late," Bianca snapped, though I was exactly on time. "I was parking," I said, taking a seat on a hard wooden chair in the corner. "Parking that rust bucket around back, I hope." Chad laughed. "We don't want the neighbors thinking the maid arrived." Bianca swirled her sherry. "Let's get this over with. I have a contractor coming at 4. We're ripping out this carpet. It smells like failure." She looked at me. "No offense, Elena. I know you're used to dingy apartments, but Chad and I have standards. We're going to modernize the estate. Open concept. Marble floors. A pool." "With what money?" I asked calmly. "With our money," Bianca hissed. "With the inheritance. Dad was a businessman, Elena. He built an empire, and he left it to the one child who stuck by him." She stood up and walked over to me. She loomed over my chair. "You know, I almost feel sorry for you. You spent your whole life trying to be independent, and look where it got you. Alone. Poor. Wearing a coat that looks like it has mothballs in the pockets." I touched the fabric of my coat. "It's wool, Bianca. It's sad," she corrected. "But don't worry. Once we settle in, I might let you stay in the guest cottage for a few weeks, until you get back on your feet. I'm generous like that." "That's very kind of you," I said, my voice flat. "It is," she agreed. "But there will be rules. No loud music, no men overnight, not that that's a problem for you. And you'll have to help with the groundskeeping. Chad has a bad back, he can't be mowing the lawn." Chad nodded solemnly. "Sciatica. From carrying the weight of this family." Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. "Ladies, if we may." "Yes, proceed," Bianca commanded, waving a hand. "Read the part where I get everything." Mr. Henderson opened the thick leather folder. He adjusted his spectacles. "I, Robert Vance, being of sound mind and body," he droned on through the legalese. Bianca was practically vibrating with greed. She was mouthing the words, my house," to herself. "I hereby leave the entirety of my estate," Mr. Henderson read, "including the property at 44 Oak Lane, the vehicles, and the contents of all personal bank accounts." Bianca gripped Chad's hand. "To my daughter, Bianca Vance." Bianca let out a scream of triumph. "Yes, I told you! I told you!" She spun on me. "Did you hear that? Everything! The house, the cars, the money. You get nothing. Zero. You are officially cut off." Chad pumped his fist. "We're rich, baby." I sat perfectly still. I watched them celebrate. I watched them high-five. I watched Mr. Henderson. He hadn't closed the folder. He was looking at Bianca with an expression that could only be described as pity. "Mrs. Vance," Mr. Henderson interrupted, raising his voice slightly. "Please. There is an addendum. A schedule of assets and liabilities." "Liabilities?" Bianca laughed. "Who cares? Pay them off with the cash accounts. How much is in there? 1 million? 2? Mr. Henderson pulled out a spreadsheet. "The cash accounts," he said, his voice trembling, "are currently overdrawn by $4,000. The room went silent. Bianca blinked. "What?" "Your father," Mr. Henderson said, "had no liquid assets at the time of his death. He was living on credit." "That's a lie," Bianca shrieked. "He bought a boat last year." "He financed a boat," Mr. Henderson corrected, "which has been repossessed." "But the house," Bianca yelled, stomping her foot. "This house is worth $3 million. I checked Zillow. The house, I said. My voice cut through the panic like a bell. Everyone turned to look at me. I was still sitting in the corner, my hands folded in my lap. The house is worth $3 million, I agreed. But it carries a mortgage of $3.2 million, plus $200,000 in unpaid property taxes. Bianca's face went pale. How do you know that? Because I know how to read a balance sheet, Bianca, I said. I stood up. And because I know who holds the debt. Who cares who holds the debt? Chad shouted. We'll sell it. We'll flip it. You can't sell it, I said. Because the equity is negative, and the primary lien holder has triggered a default clause upon the death of the borrower. English, Bianca screamed. Speak English, you nerd. It means, Mr. Henderson said, looking at me with new respect, that the house does not belong to the estate, it belongs to the bank. Or rather, the investment firm that bought the note. Bianca looked around the room, wild-eyed. What firm? Who? I'll sue them. I'll tell them I'm the heir. They don't care about heirs, Bianca, I said. They care about solvency. I reached into my Goodwill coat pocket. I pulled out a business card. It was thick, cream-colored, with gold-embossed lettering. I walked over to Mr. Henderson and placed it on the desk. Mr. Henderson, I said, I believe you have been contacted by Aegis Capital regarding the transfer of deed. Mr. Henderson looked at the card. His eyes widened. He looked at the name on the card. Elena Vance, managing partner. He looked at me. He looked at my coat. He looked at the card again. Aegis. I am, I said. Bianca snatched the card from the desk. She read it. She flipped it over. She looked at me. Aegis, she stammered. What is this? A fake card? Did you print this at Kinko's to look important? Aegis Capital, I said calmly, is the firm that owns the mortgage on this house. We also own the note on your BMW, Bianca, and the personal loan Chad took out in Dad's name 3 months ago. The silence in the library was absolute. It was heavy. It was suffocating. You! Bianca choked. You own my debt. I do, I said. But you're poor, she whispered. You drive a Honda. I drive a Honda because I don't need a BMW to prove I have value, I said. And because I prefer to spend my money on assets, like this house. I walked over to the window. I looked out at the overgrown lawn. You said I didn't deserve the inheritance, Bianca. You were right. No one deserves this inheritance. Because this inheritance isn't a gift. It's a bill. I turned back to face them. And I'm here to collect. Chad stepped forward, trying to be intimidating. Listen here, Elena. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this is our house. The will says so. The will grants you the equity, I explained, as if speaking to a slow child. The equity is 0. The debt, however, is real. And since you just accepted the inheritance, you accepted the responsibility for the estate. We'll declare bankruptcy, Bianca yelled. You can, I shrugged. But that won't stop the eviction. Eviction, Bianca gasped. You wouldn't. I would, I said. In fact, I already have. I opened my briefcase, a slim, leather portfolio that I had left by the door. I pulled out a document. Notice to vacate. I read. Served today. I slid it across the desk to Bianca. You have 30 days. Bianca stared at the paper. Her hands started to shake. Elena, please, she whimpered. The arrogance was gone. The Ice Queen facade she tried to mirror crumbled into dust. We have nowhere to go. Our condo. We sold it. We put everything into moving here, we thought. You thought you won the lottery, I finished. You thought you could kick me while I was down. You told me I could live in the guest cottage. Do you remember? I was joking, she cried, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. It was just sisterly banter. You know I love you. We're family. Family? I asked. I walked closer to her. Family doesn't block their sister from seeing their dying father. Family doesn't steal money from a man with dementia. Family doesn't mock their sister for being poor while spending her inheritance on fake Gucci bags. They're real, she sobbed instinctively. They're fake, Bianca, I said coldly. I know, because I saw the credit card statement from Canal Street. I see everything. Chad grabbed my arm. Look, Elena, we can work something out. We can be partners. I have ideas for the property. I looked at his hand on my sleeve. Get your hand off my Saint Laurent coat, I said. Chad snatched his hand back as if he had been burned. Saint Laurent, he whispered. This house is not a partnership, I said. It is a liquidation asset. I am selling it. Selling it, Bianca shrieked. But it's our childhood home. It's a money pit, I said. And it's full of bad memories. I turned to Mr. Henderson. Mr. Henderson, please record that the primary creditor, me, is exercising the right to foreclose immediately due to the insolvency of the estate. Yes, Miss Vance, Mr. Henderson said, scribbling furiously. He looked terrified of me. Bianca dropped to her knees. Literally, it was theatrical and pathetic. Elena, please, just let us stay. I'll do anything. I'll let you have the master bedroom. I'll apologize. Apologies don't pay mortgages, Bianca, I said. But where will we go? She wailed. I looked down at her. I hear the mall is hiring shift managers, I said. Bianca stopped crying. She stared at me, her mouth open. You. Yes, I said. I remember everything. I picked up my bag. You have 30 days. I suggest you start packing. And Bianca. She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. Don't take the copper wiring from the walls. My team will be inspecting the property. If anything is missing, I will press charges. I walked out of the library. Bianca was screaming behind me. Chad was yelling at Mr. Henderson. I walked out into the fresh air. I walked to my car. I didn't get into the Honda. I signaled to the black SUV parked down the street my security detail that I had kept waiting. The driver pulled up. He opened the door. I tossed my Goodwill coat into the back seat. As we drove away, I saw Bianca running out onto the porch. She was screaming my name. She looked small. She looked desperate. She looked like exactly what she was. A child who had never been told no. The eviction proceeded on schedule. Bianca tried to fight it in court. She tried to tell the judge that I tricked them. The judge, who knew my firm's reputation, dismissed the case in 10 minutes. They were escorted off the property by the sheriff. They had to move into a rental apartment in a bad part of town. Chad's BMW was repossessed by Aegis Capital the following week. Bianca is currently working as a receptionist at a dental office. She hates it. She posts vague, angry statuses on Facebook about betrayal and karma. I sold the house. I bulldozed it, actually. The land was worth more than the rotting structure. I donated the proceeds to an Alzheimer's research charity in my father's name. It was the only way to clean the money, to wash away the stain of their greed. I never spoke to Bianca again. Sometimes, she sends me emails from burner accounts asking for just a small loan to get back on her feet. I don't delete them. I print them out. I keep them in a file marked liabilities. My life is quiet now. I still drive my Honda when I visit my old friends. I still wear simple clothes. But I sleep soundly. Because I know the truth about wealth. Real power isn't shouting about what you have. It's the ability to take it all away without raising your voice. If you enjoyed this story of inheritance justice, hit that like button and subscribe. And remember, be nice to the quiet sibling. They might just own the bank. See you in the next one.